This past Monday, my co-workers and I returned to our hotel from a day of work out in the field. Rebecca and I walked to our rooms, and as we stood outside of our rooms, I opened mine, and I saw someone in the bathroom. I said,
"Hello?"
Nobody answered. My first instinct was that it was a cleaning lady in there for some reason, and then I saw my bag with my clothes in her hands. I said to my co-worker,
"There's a woman in my room.
Then I asked the woman,
What are you doing with my stuff?"
It gets a little fuzzy here because I can't remember everything I said and what she said. But she kept mumbling about how her key still worked, and that's how she got in. I was in shock, and she was obviously very flustered, having been caught mid-robbery. She dropped my bags and fumbled around with her purse and a white plastic bag. By this time, my co-worker was behind me, watching all of this insanity unfold. This woman was scrambling and walking towards the door, and I said,
"What's in the bag?"
thinking it is probably my stuff, and she responded,
No, it's just my things, I'll show you."
and she did. I looked, and I didn't see anything of mine, and since I was obviously in shock at this time, I let her leave. I went into my room, and it was ransacked. I did a quick look around to see if anything had been taken. All of my electronics were still there. Then I went into the bathroom, and I saw my underwear, my bikini, and my clothes shoved into my own bags randomly. Even my passport was shoved in there. Then I looked on the counter, and I saw that she had gotten my medication. I'm not sure what was going through my head at that moment, other than I wanted it back. So I ran out of the door to go and find her. I ran to the laundry room downstairs, and then out of the sides of the hotel. But I didn't see her. I realized I was never going to find her, so my co-worker and I went down to the lobby to tell them what happened, and then we called the police. We went back up to my room to wait, and I noticed that there was a metal bat on my bed, a little larger than one of those novelty wooden bats you can get at a baseball game, but there was also a flashlight on the end. She must have left it behind in her hurry. She also left behind a necklace that must have fallen out of her bag when she was scrambling with mine. I was mostly freaking out at this point because I thought that she had gotten away with my medication that I needed. The police got there and took our statements and looked around the room as well. One thing that I noticed was that there were bits of drywall in the sink, and I pointed that out to the cops, but none of us really knew where it came from. We started looking at the door and the windows to see if she had pried her way in somehow, but there was nothing. So we settled on the idea that she had a spare key or something, even though the hotel front desk was adamant that there was no way that was possible. The officer that came brought 2 more officers as backup because they thought that the woman might have still been in the vicinity. But after our statements were taken, there was nothing else they could really do, so they left. I sat down to finally make some calls to tell people, and as I was on the phone, I was thinking about the drywall in the sink, and it still didn't make sense to me. So I was on the phone and looking at the drywall and the mirror on the wall right above it, and then it hit me. I went to get my co-worker and asked her to help me pull at this mirror on the wall. And we took the mirror down, and there was a hole there, just big enough for a desperate junkie to squeeze through. I asked Brian and Rebecca if I should call the cops again to let them know what I had found. And my boss said, "There's still 2 cop cars in the parking lot." So I went down to tell them, and the female cop kind of rolled her eyes, but the young guy said, "I'll come check it out." They both came back up, looked in the hole, and found a pillow, blankets, cigarettes, clothes, toothbrushes, etc. This woman had been living in the wall behind my mirror for God knows how long. She had access to me in my room at all times. I know it might be hard to picture. There was a crawl space about 2 feet wide, in between the 2 rows of rooms. One of the officers called the original officer to come back and take pictures of this. She explained to him what's going on, and all I heard over the radio is, "No fucking way." He came back, took pictures, and was just as mind blown as the rest of us. Obviously, we packed up and left immediately. What was even crazier was that she had probably been there a long time. The last time we stayed at this hotel, I would randomly smell cigarette smoke, and I assumed someone was smoking in their bathroom, and it was travelling through the vents. But no, a junkie was smoking just on the other side of my mirror. She had access to other rooms too. The holes in the walls were from a renovation that the hotel hadn't properly patched up and just covered up with mirrors. She could have been hanging out in people's rooms when they were gone. I worked as a flight attendant for a few years when I decided to take an extended sabbatical from college. There were a handful of creepy situations I encountered, but one in particular still makes my skin crawl more than any other. I was born and raised in Texas, but I moved to New York when I was 21. When I found out, at the beginning of a week-long trip, that I would have a couple of overnights in Austin, I was super excited to go to my home state for a few days. My brother lived just north of the city, and we planned to hang out and go to dinner the night I arrived when he got off work. And the following day, we were going to meet up with our dad, who lived about an hour away. I arrived at the hotel downtown. The crew and I checked in, and then we each headed off to our rooms. A short elevator ride, and I got to mine. But not even 5 minutes later, there was a loud, hard knock on the door. It was only around 1 or 2 p.m, and I hadn't called either my dad or my brother to let them know I was in town yet, so they wouldn't know what room I was staying in. I assumed it was maybe one of my crewmates, so I headed to the door. About halfway to the door, however, a loud male voice on the other side boomed,
"The front desk sent me about the bathroom problem you called in."
before trying to open the door.
I knocked the door and opened up. "Miss, I need in, now."
I hadn't even been in the bathroom yet, let alone called anything to the front desk. I'm a petite chick, and while I take no shit from anyone despite my size, I still err on the side of caution. Slowly inching toward the door to look out of the peephole, all I could tell was that the man on the other side was at least 6 foot tall, and easily over double my weight. No way in hell was I going to unlock the door. I responded to the guy, telling him he must have the wrong room. He continued pounding on the door, whilst constantly turning the handle, telling me no, he needed in and was getting in the room one way or another. I panicked, but thankfully had the sense to grab the phone and call the front desk. The concierge confirmed that they had neither sent anyone up to my room, nor had they received a call about the bathroom. The entire time, this guy was still determined to get into my room, pounding and yelling. Luckily for me, the front desk had dispatched security to my floor. When the security officers stepped off the elevator a few seconds later, I could hear them in the hall approach and ask the guy who he was, what he was doing, and telling him he needed to leave the hotel. He immediately got hostile and aggressive toward them, and the front desk clerk I was still on the phone with told me the police had been called and were on their way. In the meantime, I was trapped in my room, scared shitless. Long story short, the cops showed up pretty quickly and managed to arrest the guy for trespassing and criminal menacing or something. I later found out that the guy was also wanted in connection to a string of break-ins and violent sexual assaults in Austin. He had seen and stalked me from the minute I entered the hotel lobby. Apparently, I was exactly his type of victim. Nothing else happened after that, but it still rattled me for the rest of my stay in that hotel. Before I continue with the final story, if you've enjoyed this video so far, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to see future content from me, as well as help me in the algorithm. Thank you. When I was about 16, I went on a trip to Cabo, San Lucas, with my family and my best friend. My friend and I had a hotel room to ourselves for the trip, something I was naturally excited about. One afternoon, I was getting on the elevator, and a security guard got on with me. As the elevator rose, he looked at me and said, "Excuse me, were you wearing a green skirt on the beach the other day?" Yes, why?" I replied. I was already reflexively creeped out at the mention of a miniskirt I had worn a few days prior. "Oh, nothing. I really liked it a lot." When I got out of the elevator, he got off on the same floor and was walking past as I took out my keycard to unlock the door to my room. At 4 AM that morning, I woke up slightly startled, only to register that there was a man standing, silently, at the foot of my bed. A man in a security guard uniform, the one from the elevator. As he saw me wake up, he stammered something about my door not being locked properly and ran out of the room. I was still groggy with sleep and didn't fully register what had just happened. A moment after he ran out, I became aware that I was laying on my back, with the covers around my ankles. I sleep nude, but never kick my covers off in my sleep, as I'm always cold, and the AC was on full blast as well. I'm also a very deep sleeper, so someone standing at my bed alone would never stir me. I'm pretty sure he pulled the covers back, causing me to get cold, and that is what woke me. I'm scared to think what could have happened had my friend not been fast asleep in the next bed. Unfortunately, as I was creeped out in the elevator and had avoided making eye contact or looking at his face, and as it was so dark, I couldn't have identified him in the room. I never bothered to report it to the hotel. I still regret that, years later. That's all the stories I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and help this channel reach 1,000 subscribers, as we are so close. And also consider watching some of my previous content. Thank you.